Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new workshop with the European Champions Alliance for our startup and scale-up members. Very happy to be here today. I hope you can all see me and hear me clearly. So today I am very happy to welcome Kai to this webinar. Hello, Kai.
Hello, Andrea. Nice to be here. Thank you.
So Kai is a specialist for work organizations and will tell us today how to craft a dream team, which is, of course, a topic that is super relevant for all the startups. Not only to have a great product and a good go-to-market strategy, but to have a great team who can support the expansion strategy. So this is why I'm very pleased to have you here today, Kai. I will leave you the floor for your presentation. Of course, everyone can ask questions in the chat. I'm sure I will have some questions too. And then I would say the floor is yours, Kai, and I will see you after your presentation.
Thank you very much, Andrea. So hello, everyone. Yeah, as you know by now, my name is Kai. I'm a business consultant for work organization. I'm the CEO and founder of teamdecoder. And we work a lot with startups in the creation time. So that's how this presentation came together. And I think I gathered here a few insights that are very important for you guys building a company. So we call this How to Craft a Dream Team. And you'll see during the presentation why having a dream team is so important in helping you being resilient for all kinds of challenges that are ahead, and also to build happiness and trust amongst each other to be successful at the end of the day. And we also call this Empowering Startups Beyond the Org Chart, because the org chart is normally something you might build already in the very beginning. You might have some investors or accelerators that ask you for one, or it's just what you've learned in the past that is helpful. So the first thing you might create in terms of organization of your company is an org chart. But I want to start today with the question, what actually would be the problem with an org chart? Because there are some. And this image I generated with Adobe Firefly yesterday is picturing a little bit the complexity that an org chart can take in today's world. And I want to take a look with you guys about how this comes across, why org charts have become something that's not really helpful anymore in today's business world. So this is kind of the org chart that we know, right? So this is I just downloaded this yesterday. I don't even know what company that is. Yeah, a few people at the top, then medium amount of people in the middle, and a lot of people at the bottom. That's usually how org charts look like. But then if I work as a consultant and I go into lots of companies to work with lots of teams, what I see is that these org charts that the teams and the companies work with don't really match real life anymore. So what happens is there is an org chart that's good for HR or good for a PowerPoint presentation to show around, but it actually does not show the secret structure that the teams always build underneath. It's like a kind of a parallel universe that they build each other that has no place to be shown. So I want to go through some examples that show how this parallel universe takes place. So what's happening, for example, that a person is part of two teams. Let's say we have a developer who is part of the tech team. So you have the green box here called tech, that's the tech team, and the person A is part of the tech team. At the same time, this company has created an AI team, and the same person is part of the AI team. So if you jump back to the organigram, to the org chart, what happens now is that we would have the same person in two spots of this org chart. It's something that happens a lot, especially when you have task forces or, of course, projects. The projects are not depicted in the org chart, but task forces could be, new departments could be. So in the flexibility that teams today need to have, this happens quite a lot, that the person is in various teams. And then these org charts become weird because everybody shows several times inside these org charts. Another thing that happens a lot is, more and more, I must say, is that people are in a leader position in one team and in a team member position in another team. In this example here, I had someone who was team lead of the social media team, person B. At the same time, they were part of a sustainability team where they were either not a leader or maybe there wasn't a leader at all. So the same person can be in different hierarchy levels of the same company or org chart. And then if we jump back to the org chart, it becomes really difficult to depict because the same person can be not only in different teams, but also on different levels within this team. And then you already can see how difficult it becomes to build an org chart that actually works. And there's a third and last example that's maybe the most revolutionizing one. Let's say there's a person an HR specialist who's working on employee engagement and who is also a key member of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So this person has a role, it's just HR specialist. And with this role, this person is in the two teams, in the HR team and in the D&I committee. So here it becomes really difficult because now we're not dealing with putting a person in different spots, but because the org chart is only showing people and names, we have difficulties in putting the roles in different spaces, or we don't even know where to put them at all. So what we want to do is we want to see how in all this complexity that teams have to deal with today, we can create a system that builds good team health. So and by team health, I mean well-being, resilience, and productivity. That's the three items that are the great objectives. You want to build teams so that they feel well, they feel good, they're happy in their work, they're resilient to all the developments and challenges that lie ahead, and they're also productive in terms of they do their work. At the same time, we do not want them to perceive too much stress. We do not want them to live through burnout processes. We want them to have lots of energy and so on. And what all studies say, and we studied many research that is available, is that the most important factor for a team to be happy, productive, and resilient is trust. So trust is the number one source of well-being, resilience, and productivity. So all we need to do is to build the trust in the team. And how do we build trust? By creating transparency. So transparency and a clear communication is super important in order to drive trust. And then in order to drive the transparency, I think a team needs to have the correct systems and tools maybe in place to provide the transparency that people then need in order to trust each other, so they can perceive well-being, resilience, and productivity at the end of the day. And the most important element to get there is that we need to change the view how we look at work. So there's one thing that we're very used to when we talk about work, and that's the left side here on this chart. It's the what. So when we look at work, we always look at what do I need to do. That's why we're so happy nowadays with productivity tools like project management tools like Asana or Monday or Microsoft Teams, boards, those kind of things where you can write down who has to do what until when within a project. But the question, how do we actually want to work in order to reach our purpose, is a question that we do not ask ourselves enough. So we do not really sit together regularly to discuss the way we work and see if this is the correct way to work. And I will present you a solution to this at the end of this little keynote. First, I want to dive into challenges that you as startups specifically have, and I can talk about out of own experience here, having created a few companies myself. The first thing that every startup can sign and underline is that there are very few people, but there are lots of things to do. So we do not have hired a bunch of people yet, but we already have the work of this bunch of people. You definitely have a founder. You might already have found a co-founder who does that whole thing with you. Maybe you have your hire number one, but it's only a 30% FTE person on minimum salary and lots of virtual shares. So there's limited expectations toward this person. And maybe there's an intern that one of you got on board after teaching at university or something and got this person on board. So and then what I tried to write down here on the right-hand side is just a few ideas of all the things that need to be done, like as a bare minimum, as somebody needs to take care of the product. You want to make sure that your customers are happy. You need to do marketing, otherwise no one will use your services or products. You need to have and maintain a website. You need to have relationships to investors. You need to fundraise. You need to apply to accelerators, networking, pitch decks, blah, blah, blah. And then you start drawing these lines, right? You see, okay, I take care of this and you take care of that. And then the system becomes really complicated. And there's lots of things at the end that no one takes care of because there's actually not enough time. And to find a system, how a startup can organize all this is super important. Otherwise, there's just bare chaos. And this bare chaos, one of the results is that you lose track of responsibilities. So maybe at one point in time, there was this amazing tool that you needed to subscribe to because it helped you with doing something. But then nobody's really looking at it anymore. You forget that it exists and nobody's managing the licenses. And then this thing falls into between the cracks. And yeah, because there was nobody assigned to this is saying you are responsible for this. Or there are files that you meticulously created, like a user persona or a large financial plan that you showed someone, or the reportings of your actual subscription numbers, or there's maybe an MRR section in the pitch deck. All these things need updating. But if you haven't identified who's responsible for this, it will just not happen. And then the next time somebody asks you for persona on your financial plan, it's like this old thing that, oh, somebody please update this, otherwise I can show it to someone. We all know this. Or maybe you have a client that is more demanding than you thought your clients would be, and you suddenly need to assign someone like a single point of contact for this client, and you don't know who can do this. Or everybody's working with the meta ad manager, everybody's doing a little one there, but there's no one having the oversight and actually doing the analytics of finding out what works and what does not work, because maybe your marketing person hasn't started yet, and this is the kind of workaround that you have established. Or maybe, yeah, same thing with LinkedIn. Everybody's doing some updates, but nobody's coordinating them. So one day there are 3 updates and then there's no update for 3 days. All these kind of things that we all know that are responsibilities that we do not track, and which is why we do not have the order we might need. Other things that are happening regularly, we as startups who work regularly with freelancers. So for freelancers, we need to set expectations, what we expect from them. We need to make lists of to-dos. We need to make sure they're well embedded in the rest of the team. And maybe we can learn from the experience with 1 or 2 of them to then make sure that the next time we hire a freelancer, the process is a little smoother. If it's not freelancers, it's hopefully onboarding of new team members at one point of time, where when this new person starts, we can see what's the kind of work that we shift from existing people to this new person in order to decrease the weight of work on the existing people. But then there's maybe also new work that you always wanted to do that no one could take care of in the past, that now this new person can take care of. So it's these kind of things. What's the work we need to shift? What's the new work we want to create that we then put into a profile for this person? And then a very important thing is planning for the future, or planning for scaling. So we always need to plan what's ahead of us, so we can create profiles for people or roles and skills that we do not have yet, but we know at one point in time we do need them, and we can already start now creating the profiles. It's basically like creating a virtual future team with clear roles and responsibilities that we can then nurture over time when we realize in our day-to-day what we actually need. And the secret sauce to actually make all this work is a word that sounds so simple. It's what I call roles. What is a role? A role is basically, that's the chart I use to explain to larger corporations what a role is, because they're very used to having people in jobs and fixed positions. So Hannah on the left-hand side, she's a developer, and as a developer, she's part of the tech circle. But now when we talk about roles, Hannah and her profile can not only have the job of developer, which is now a role, but she can also have the role of a circular economy expert. That's what I showed you before in the organigram. And it's now possible that a person is placed in different spots on the organigram. So Hannah is developer and circular economy expert. And as circular economy expert, she's part of the sustainability circle, where she'll meet Claude, who's actually also a designer in the marketing circle. And this is how we break down jobs into actual roles and then make sure they're attributed and assigned in a better way. So you want to find a definition for a role, we could say a role is a bundle of tasks with a clear purpose that is independent of a person. So I look at the role and I define what this role needs to do, and then I assign this role to 1 or maybe 2 or 3 or 5 people that are owners of this role. So when I start to define, I want to dig a little bit deeper now into this, what we call role-based work, to give you an idea of how you as a startup can get started in defining your organization in a way that's ready for scaling, so you don't observe this chaos slowly creeping into your team. So when you start defining roles, every role needs to be defined with a specific set of elements. That's my recommendation, at least that's the framework I work with in practice. So every role has a name. Let's say the name of this role is key account manager. There's a precise purpose for this role. In this case, the key account manager has the purpose to make clients happy. And then there are precise tasks for this role. This list can be long. So in this case, the key account manager might have the task to do regular needs analysis of the clients, maybe to organize a yearly event, or maybe do sales, like increase the business with each client, that kind of stuff. Then this can lead into clear and measurable objectives. So the objective could be to increase the budget with this client's 20%, maybe a certain satisfaction rate in the yearly satisfaction survey of at least 8 out of 10 points, those kind of things. And then there are owners. As I said before, a role can have several owners. In this case, the team has 2 key account managers, there's Marie and there's Kenny. And they own something called the key account management dashboards. And in my framework, it's called domains. So these are the things that we need to define clear ownership for. Like I said before, the things that we always forget to update. So make clear one person is responsible for something. And then a team can also design FTE to a role. In this case, they say, okay, we have 2 FTE in the budget for key account management. That's why it makes sense that Marie and Kenny are on here. So now we know what a role is and how to define a role. And then next question would be, what kind of roles are there? There's different ways to describe work in 2 roles. So one idea could be to say there are skill-based roles, like you have a designer. Design is something a person learns, so it's a skill I acquire, so it's what we call a skill-based role. But there are also non-skill or management-oriented roles. So project manager could be a role that you assign to someone and you define. There are other roles on the top right side which are more content-oriented. So social media strategy is a role that works something, that produces something, produces a strategy, or someone produces the post, or someone produces kind of work. So it's content related roles. But we can also have hierarchy related roles, like a head of marketing would be a role. And then you would describe what you expect a head of marketing or your head of marketing to do within their team. Roles can be also differentiated by either being single owner roles or multiple owner roles. Let's say the CEO, you might, well, also this is changing too. You might still be a team that only has one CEO, so you can identify this as single owner roles. And there are other roles like the key account manager that we just saw, who has multiple owners. And the last differentiation, I want to talk about just as an example of different kinds of roles, is there are roles that are internal oriented, like you might have a dedicated person for organizational design. That's something that works internally. Or you might have consultants as a role in your work with your clients. It's an external oriented role. So when all these kind of roles come together in the framework that I want to show you today, that you could use to start organizing your work. So it's a framework for role-based work, and it works with these seven lists. And if you just had a piece of paper with these 7 names on top, and you can start writing down in the individual boxes what you have today, this could be a great start for you guys to start organizing your team, preparing it for the future. So it starts on the left-hand side in the yellow list with people. So you just list everybody in your team and maybe also the freelancers that you work with. Then the next one is the skill-based roles. So all kinds of capabilities that you need to reach your purpose. Then come the admin, organization, management, and support related roles. Then come the domains that define clear ownership over tools and budgets and things you need to have clear ownership for. There's one kind of roles that we call links. It's stakeholder and relationship. So who is the person in your team who is responsible to create and maintain the relationship with your lawyer or with your investor or with your landlord or with another startup or with the association ABC or with the city or whoever your stakeholders are that you need to have a good relationship with. It's always important to be clear about who is responsible to build and maintain this relationship. And then you can combine those roles in circles. So the circles are sub-teams. It could be groups or teams or departments or whatever. And then these circles can launch projects, which are basically sub-circles saying, okay, one circle has a sub-team that works on certain things. So this is a framework that you can use to organize your work. And it will then help startups to do a few things. So it helps you to better distribute your current work. So if you write down your current work and then you distribute it and you create those roles and distribute it to people, it helps you to distribute them more evenly and more fair, maybe even. It also helps you to set priorities, because once you start to discuss roles and FTEs, you will have to make decisions as a team how you actually distribute it or how important one thing is, or if there's a role that you all think important, but there's no one who can do it. So you agree on the fact that this role stays without owner for a little while until you find another solution. We will also help you not to forget important things anymore, because once they are defined and there's a responsible person named, at least it shows up on the list in their reports, and then they know that they are the ones responsible for it. It helps you to plan future roles. Once you have the idea that you need, let's say, maybe a customer success manager, you can create that role and then start defining slowly over the next few weeks and months what you think this new role should do. It helps you to structure your team growth by creating different roles. It gives everyone in the team clarity and transparency, which they need. Loop back to the beginning in order you can build the trust in your team. So you have well-being, resilience, and happiness. Well-being, resilience, and what was the third one? Success, performance together. It helps you to coordinate freelancers and have an easier onboarding. So there are lots of benefits of a role-based work. Just copy the framework out of here and then do it. We even have provided a dream team builder that you can download at this link. It's a few steps that help you to build your personal dream team. It's 5 questions that it helps you to go through. So first question is, who's in your team today? That's a very simple list of making lists of the people that you work with, either hired or I know you might have lots of advisors and people you know that maybe work for free. You could put them in the list too, and then the freelancers as well. Next question would be, what do these people actually do? You start making lists of the things that you ask those people to do or how you distributed work today. And you can use these lists then to actually create your first roles that you put in the framework. You can think about the roles you need in the future, like what's on your list for later. And then you start a process of asking you the same questions over and over again. I call these campfire meetings that your team can do in regular meetings to discuss how your way of working would need to change. So you can, let's say you do this once a month and you sit together and you look back the last month and assess the performance, see how did everything work, what did come up, what kind of roles did we maybe define that did not work the way we expected them to do. Maybe there were some successes you can celebrate and so on. Then the next question you would discuss in this meeting is to consider changes. So looking back is one thing, but then now looking forward, is there some new roles we need to create? Or maybe there's a role we had identified that we need to split in order to make it better assignable to more than just one person. Or maybe we had a task parked in one role and it should be better parked in another role. All these kinds of optimizations, looking in the future, is one thing you should discuss in these meetings. Also, workload management. So if you start working in roles, you'll find out that a person might end up with 7 or 8 different roles. You need to look each other in the eye and tell this person how to distribute their time over these 8 different roles. So maybe there is one very important role that takes up 75% of their time, and then the rest is just little small things. But this is something you as a team need to agree on, so everyone has the same expectations. This goes along with prioritization. Maybe there are roles that nobody can own at the moment, but then this is your prioritization, and this is what people will follow to do. You can identify new roles that you need in the future. You can manage the roles that you've created over time that have no owner, that you have to rethink if it's okay that it's a no owner role, or maybe at one point in time, you need to define someone who should do this. And the recruitment strategy, of course. So once you see there's so many important roles that have no owner, this might be the moment that you as a team realize now is the time to actually hire someone, find someone who can take, I don't know, if there's 5 open roles, maybe you find someone who can take up at least 3 of them, and the other 2 you can redistribute in the team. Now, there's a very little ad break now because we in Team Decoder actually created a workflow that helps you do exactly these kind of things. We have the framework that I just presented to you that's open source. You can all use it. You don't need to write Team Decoder next to it. You just copy it and work with it. That's fine. We have the campfire process that's also freely available. And then we created an app that actually facilitates the framework and the process and the transparency part. And the app looks exactly as the framework I just showed you. It consists of these 7 lists where you can collect these items and then you can assign them. And there are a few features that are especially interesting for startups, like the new compare mode, where you can put all the people next to each other, and then you see all the roles that have been parked with each person, and you can drag and drop them around and say, okay, I don't have time for this. Why couldn't you take this over? And you can also apply the workload for this to make sure that everybody is at least aware of how much work it should be, even if it's more than 1 FTE. And there's also something very interesting that you can do with role-based work. We just realized this a few months ago, and we created a project called AI as a new team member. And this is maybe as an inspiration for you guys when you start to create those roles. We call it the AI that we want to integrate in our hybrid team, Mareike. Mareike is a German name. It has AI in the middle, so it was really funny to do this. Haha. So the process goes as follows. So when you create your team in the yellow list, you remember in the framework, we can now build hybrid teams. So we can say there's a list of humans, like say there's Carl, Susanna, and Taylor. They're all tagged with human. And then maybe you have Mareike, and I put myself in here too, because I also have an AI in my name. And Amy also has an AI in her name. Let's say there's these 3 AIs that are now part of the team. They could take over work. Maybe one of them is based on ChatGPT. Maybe another one is based on Adobe Firefly, and the third one on Copilot or whatever. What you can then do is you can identify the areas where AI can help you. And there are lots of use cases in the areas of HR, marketing, and tech. Marketing is actually currently the #1 area, if you follow studies, where AI can already create the biggest business benefit. And then you could see the different roles you have in these buckets. You can write down what each of those roles does in their day-to-day business. And then I can reassign these tasks from the roles owned by people to roles actually owned by AI. So in this example, you can see the role who's responsible for salaries, the role who's responsible for recruiting, and the role who's responsible for development next to each other. And I just put down the items that I think maybe could be done by a new role called HI support, which is taken over by Mareike. Like I see, for example, she could help write code, definitely. She could definitely help write job adverts. She can definitely maybe even pre-interview candidates or issue the first draft contracts or analyze existing contracts. AI is perfect to develop shift schedules or to do performance analysis. All these things, if you scroll through the tasks of your roles today and you filter out the ones that AI can do, this is really a great idea for you to help out, to help you let AI help your team in becoming more effective. So I want to kind of end up with the beginning, why the org chart is so important. I know the org chart is important because it might be the only thing that your investors asking for. An org chart, an organization is not a #1 priority of you while you're still developing your product. But, and that's what research and practice show, your team needs clarity and transparency. And this is why thinking beyond the org chart in terms of organization is so important. And I want to give you a little present with you. So if you're interested in doing this, if you think role-based work is something that could help you, there's 2 things I can offer you. One is a free Team Decoder account that you get at teamdecoder.com or with this QR code. And the other thing exclusive to you listeners today is if you want, here's my email, kai@teamdecoder.com, and we can have a 1-hour live onboarding session where we talk about your situation and how role-based work could help your team in becoming better organized and being more effective. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you very much for this presentation. Very dynamic presentation, and I thought a lot during the presentation about what we do at the ECA, and we talked about it before, if it might be a tool that we can use for us, or at least the methodology, because we have so many different people doing so many different things, and we have so many more things to do. And so,
I really didn't want to make this advertising for the tool. I really want to promote the framework. So if you want to start just writing down what you do and think about how you can package these tasks into roles and assign them, this is already a completely different way of thinking, because then you will start rethinking the way you work regularly. And that's important for teams today, to not get stuck into a fixed structure that has to stay like this forever. Because startups, new things happen every day. So you need to have a structure that can adapt on a daily basis. And this is why a system like this is so helpful.
And so I have a couple of questions, and if people in the call have questions, they can, of course, put them in the chat too, and we'll answer. So we said it before, this team structure, thinking about this is something that is not maybe always the first priority, what teams are doing or what even CEOs are thinking about. So what can happen if you don't think about it? So when do people call Kai and say, okay, Kai, we have a problem. Can you help us? So what are the signs of a team not working correctly?
So what we regularly do is help companies in restructurings. So when the team is not built up in this flexible and resilient way, what will happen regularly is that big changes need to happen. So it's exactly what we try to avoid with this system. I just yesterday created this example. I wrote a blog article and this picture came up of skyscrapers in Erdbeben. Was heißt Erdbeben? Tremblement de terre in English.
Earthquake.
Earthquakes, right. So skyscrapers in earthquake areas, they are built in such a flexible way that the earthquake can happen and the building does not collapse. And that's the same way with teams. So change processes in companies happen all the time. So you cannot work in a company today without having a new change program every 3 months. That's just the way our world works. There's too many things happening. Companies cannot afford to not change. So we need to build the teams in this resilient way so they can act like the skyscrapers. There's one earthquake coming after the other, but the team is so flexible that they just integrate a few new skills, 3 new people, they change the structure, they create new roles to adapt in a very fluent methodology to this way. And when the teams are not built up this way, if the skyscraper is not built in a flexible way, it just collapses. And that keeps on happening in companies during change processes over and over. So there's this weird statistic that 80% of all change processes fail. I didn't find any true substance to it, but I think it comes from experience from many consultancies saying, whatever change you're planning, you can plan on the fact that it's not going to work because your teams are not built up in the correct way. It's always the same reason why it doesn't work. You don't take the teams with you. So that's why this is so important that's why startups are so important for me to give this message from the very beginning, because then you can maybe there are not so many earthquakes now, but there will be more coming. So you need to build the flexibility inside your team. Otherwise, the change will be harder and more difficult to make.
And when we get to this, one other question would be for me. It might be, something that the CEO understands, or maybe the co-founders understand that. But how do you help your employees to be that flexible? Because they might not, many of them might be young and maybe of them might not know this kind of flexible working. So, and then you tell them today you are this role, tomorrow you're this role. So how do you help them navigate in this ever-changing org chart, basically?
Yeah, they have to learn this. But both, so there's deficits on both levels. So it's not necessarily the fact that the CEO or the department heads understand this. They understand the need for change, but they do not necessarily understand the need for the flexibility in the team. They very often come very top down in the sense of, this is our new strategy, you need to do this. And they're ignoring the fact that the teams are not only executing the wishes from on top, but they're actually finding ways of making this work. Without the teams, the new strategies wouldn't work. Like the example I'm currently always using is that here in Berlin, Bayer Pharmaceuticals, they have a new operating model. It's all around the press. And they killed some hierarchy levels. I think 2 or 3 hierarchy levels were totally killed in order to make the whole organization more flexible and quicker and more agile. And then now you have every single team fighting with this new situation, having to find a new way of work. And the only way to figure this out is per team, right? You cannot come from the top and say, give guidelines now for, I don't know how many teams they have, 158 teams. So every single team needs to find out a new way of working. And the other thing is teaching people to work that way. That's also a challenge, especially in like more traditional hierarchy organized organizations. And maybe disclaimer with this framework, we do not kill hierarchy. You can have tons. You can have as much hierarchy as you want in the strategy. This is not the question. CEO can be a role. The marketing head can be a role. So all this can be defined as roles, and then it's clear what these people need to do. But the fact that things can change is something that teams need to learn. And that's why we spend lots of time with people. It's not with startups. They kind of learn it from the beginning, but I go in established teams. You sometimes work with them for 6 months or 12 months. we organize these campfire meetings that I was talking about to give these impulses. What we see very often is that the people come up with great ideas for structures. So they're very active. Everybody's very active in the beginning. And then we create ideas. Let's make a precise example. We had this, I think I said that in the presentation, there's a new strategy from top saying we need to be more customer centric. So we don't keep on losing our most important clients. And then the team is there and says, how can we be more customer centric? And then they're like, okay, let's maybe, the business clients are so important for us. Let's maybe create a B2B circle, and we find some new ways to keep our business clients stronger. And then this circle starts to work, and the team realizes after a few weeks that it's not working. It was maybe a cool idea. It sounded great in the beginning to have the B2B circle, but then they didn't really know what to do. Like the right skills were missing, and the team wasn't really producing anything. And everybody was like, "Why? What's this team doing? Why do we have them?" But nobody dared to say, "Let's kill that circle. It's not working." So we go in there and we kill those circles. We kill these ideas. We said, "Okay, that was a nice idea, but it didn't work. Let's kill it." And then we click delete in Team Decoder, and then it's gone. And everyone is screaming like, "No, you cannot just delete this team. Now it's gone." And we're like, "Yeah, we can, because it's not working. If we still have the problem, let's find another solution for the problem. So maybe it's not a B2B circle, maybe it's just a role, or maybe we just need to connect better to a different department. Let's try out something else." So it's these inspirations that we give into the teams over and over again, so they can see how they profit from a flexible system.
Okay, so Monica has an interesting. Hi, Monica. It's
Where do I see the questions?
Nice to read you. You have to go into the chat on the right side. So in a change process, would you recommend that people collaborate on the definition of new roles? Would you think that would guarantee the success of the change? So participative change process,
Absolutely.
basically.
There's no guarantee. That's number A. That's why this campfire process is so important. Your guarantee is only there if you are flexible in changing the definition of the role again tomorrow if you find out it's not working. But the definition of the role, definitely needs to be created with the teams together. But what happens quite often is that if the idea for a restructuring or a change process comes from above, there is a way to there's sometimes a guidance of what the team needs to do. So let's say the team gets the question, please develop a key account management. Then very often, like, the name and the purpose of the role is already there, but the individual tasks of this role is something the team works on. And this is also when the team knowledge and intelligence comes into place, because only the team knows how this role might interfere with other roles. In the case of the key account management, there was a lot of interference with the role project management. And suddenly the question was, who writes the cost estimate? Is that the project manager or is that the key account manager? And that's the kind of question that only the team can decide. And again, and like in the special case I have in my head now, the team decided the key account manager needs to write the cost estimate. So we put it there. And then 2 weeks later in the campfire meeting, they came back and said, I don't have time to write this. I've never been trained on the software. Can this please the project manager do? They did this all the time. Then we shifted the task over. So this, in incorporating the team in the development of the role task, but then keeping the flexibility in changing the tasks within a role. This is how you, this is, I think, the recipe for success.
And so you said it before, but I want you to maybe repeat it again, or just to be sure that I've well understood. You said that this should be done every 3 months, or is this an ongoing process, or is this something that you schedule every 3 months or every 6 months or something like that?
We schedule it regularly. It's fixed in the agenda. Every team has a series of campfire meetings, and depending on the state of the transformation, it happens more often or less often. So when we work on a larger team with a big change, we do the campfire meeting every week. Like every Friday morning, there's an hour block for campfire. This doesn't mean that every team member needs to participate all the time, but it means that everyone who experienced something that needs optimization, or everyone who has an idea of something could be better in the future, they come in that meeting, or they put it in a list beforehand. The moderator creates the agenda, and then these things are discussed. And over time, the meeting happens less and less. But I would never go below once a month. So even established teams that think nothing needs to change in the organization should at least once a month sit together and discuss if there is not something that they're not seeing and don't always only look back. It's not like what doesn't work now, what do we need to change? Because very often you're very happy with the way you're working, and it's like, it's been working for centuries, so why should it change? But then look in the future. Then look 3 months ahead and see, oh, we know exactly that this is coming towards us, and this is coming, and these projects are starting. So, and we still haven't talked about AI or sustainability or whatever. How do we get this integrated? Who's going to think about this? And then this meeting becomes prioritization meeting for topics for the team, which is very important.
Okay. And maybe a last question from my side would be, who is in charge of this? Who's the owner of the project and of your tool, for example? Who are the ones who are using Team Decoder and setting everything up?
Yeah. So it's either the team lead. So we have lots of team leads or founders themselves who use it to manage their team because they want to have like a steering cockpit of who do I get on board and how do we split the roles. So very often the work is done in the team, like in workshops, but the founder or the team leader will be the person who uses it to puzzle around, to see the options and to analyze and see the issues and then discuss the issues with people and then to implement the solutions. In larger companies, it's always very often a stand-in, like the department head or the CEO would be too busy to take care of this. So the team elects what we call a governance moderator who's responsible for managing the governance process and inviting people to this meeting and managing the tool. And very often we have external consultants doing it, like the same way we do it for our clients. Lots of teams, maybe even startups, they have external consultants helping them with the restructuring process. And then it's consulting doing the workshops and using Team Decoder to actually document the changes. Because what comes out of the other end of Team Decoder is job reports for every person. So whenever your workshop was, you can see, we added this task and this role, or this role has been shifted to this person now. So this is all about this clarity and transparency that I was talking about at the beginning. What is so important that whenever you have these meetings and decide to change something, everybody needs to be aware. That's why it's not a collaborative tool. The idea is not everybody can go in there and all the time change roles and responsibilities. And then everybody has to find out how their job profile actually ended up. This is something the team has to decide together. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much again, Kai, for the presentation and for the insight. I think there's a lot of really good content that we will reuse also after this meeting. But so people have your contacts. We'll share it also in the email follow-up of this meeting. And
really don't hesitate to reach out. It's like it can be a simple discussion about the challenges of your team and maybe have a little idea how it can help you.
Okay. Thank you, Kai. Thank you for your time and for preparing this presentation for us.
You're so welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.